Welcome to my little project called Between Ideas and Subcultures. Today I want to explore some ideas connected to Nassim Taleb and Peter Thiel because last weekend I wrote an article called the Talebian and Thielian Moment. The article is a play on words. The name comes from similar sounding article, or the Straussian moment that Peter Thiel wrote after 9/11. The idea of the article was built around the relationship of two philosophers, one political scientist, Carl Schmitt, and his long-term friend, Leo Strauss. And Thiel added there his take on the matter and his kind of Girardian sensibility, fighting mimetic violence, fighting rivalry, and presenting Girard's kind of solution to the problem of scapegoating, and also presenting the problem. So the Carl Schmittian idea is that now we are entering or back then in 9/11, we are entering the period of politics proper, where we know our enemies and we need to kind of address our enemies. We need to draw boundaries, draw lines. And then he kind of, as a counterpoint, he proposed the Leo Strauss kind of solution of indirect, clandestine, esoteric power of action. So like not doing something directly, but doing it more indirectly. And then Peter Thiel proceeds with his kind of take on reducing violence through reduction of scapegoating and reduction of rivalry, and this like the problem of mimetic rivalry. So this is also the point of his zero to one book. So it's like kind of we have the power of horizontal globalization, like the power of copying. So the copycats. So, and then the vertical power of 0 to 1. So some kind of event that is unique, that never happened before, and so where there is some like leap or some phase transition into some really 10x better technology, and some kind of technology that allows a company to create a monopoly and escape these rivalries, copycat games or something like that. And the Talebian moment comes from black swans. Taleb would say that this is not a black swan, this current COVID-19 pandemic, because pandemics are rare, but they happen periodically after some decades, after centuries. They have happened in the past. They happened even in the very recent past. Okay, we some epidemics that might grow into pandemics. So we had some epidemics in the one was called, I think, Asian flu. Another one was called Hong Kong flu. We had some Ebola outbreaks. We had MERS. We had SARS. Before we had 1918 pandemic of so-called Spanish flu. So. And then there were some smaller pandemics that we even don't remember, like swine flu, I don't know, in 2009, I think, if I'm correct. So there were these periods, and with Taleb we can say that the end of the idea, the end of history as an idea itself ended. So this is also the point of Peter Thiel. He said that this idea, the end of history, or the liberal order, won the war of ideas. Itself ended in 2018 when Xi Jinping became president for life. But right after, not what happened in December 2019, it's kind of, or January 2020, we can see these kind of outlines of the new world to come, the pandemics, which brought another idea to end, and this is the end of future idea. It's kind of the central topic of Peter Thiel. That's basically we live in some kind of inertia or some kind of for 50 years, even Eric Weinstein talks about it. Since the 70s, we live in some kind of future that just flows, that we are passive towards it. And the Peter Thiel has this kind of model of 4 different futures. So you can have a positive and definite future. Which was like the moonshot idea in the 1960s, where you had one big project, get humanity to the moon, and you had tens of thousands of scientists, engineers, different types of workers, bureaucrats working towards one goal. As I would maybe say later, there can be some critiques of this. Not as an approach, but the goal itself to get into to the moon. For example, Alexander Bard, another philosopher I follow, he says that this is a kind of a childish dream. It's not so productive. It's something like building pyramids. It's kind of like child pharaoh's dream. Dreams come true because it's not really that useful, right? It's like loads of resources are wasted, but then there is not so much use. Like ending poverty would be something more useful. The ending poverty with some super high technology where you can grow your own food almost for free or something like that, you know. So, but then there is a counter argument to this, that okay, maybe the direct goal was foolish, but the indirect, the secondary effects of pursuing this moonshot strategy. The secondary effects were loads of innovations that came from this space industry, a boom in the 1960s. Okay, but since the 70s, since the oil shocks and something, we kind of left the future, and we kind of we separated the world into developed, so-called developed countries, and developing countries. And so Peter Thiel says that this implies that the developed countries are already developed, so there is no future. All you have to do is just to mimic us as, people in the West. So another kind of possible future is the future where you are pessimistic and indefinite. So where you see future as indefinite, like always open, but something it's just not right. It's gonna get worse, but we don't know how worse and in what ways it will become worse. So this pessimistic and indefinite future is where the Europe is currently, according to Peter Thiel. So it's like people like to go on vacations, but they don't invest much, they don't save much. It's just like they consume a lot. Okay, so then there is optimistic and indefinite future of America. So it's like it's always gonna get better, but we don't know how. So there is lots of transactional relationships going on in the finance sector, in the the financial sector, and lawyers proliferate, or they have their great times, just like moving some piles of money from here to there, exploring and exploiting various opportunities as they come, as they go, maintaining optionality. So Peter Thiel doesn't like this kind of idea of like maintaining all the options open, optionality. And this brings us to another possible future, which is now pessimistic and definite. This is the China future, where the Chinese, they had some terrible moments in their recent history. The most recent maybe was the Cultural Revolution of Mao Zedong, that it was some kind of like children playing gods, bringing havoc, protesting and attacking the older generation, some hunger and and famine that came out of it, and this and that. So it was loads of trouble. And so since then they are in a kind of funny strange mode where they are saving like 50% of their income or something like that, and they are investing also a lot. Okay, they're not that much, and they are not consuming domestically. They are just producing, investing, and saving a lot, saving for the worst. And they are investing in U.S. treasuries, which is kind of interesting. Like they invest into those people who are optimistic, but they don't have the clear vision. So the Chinese, they have the clear vision. They want to. Their clear vision is they want to avoid some catastrophe, some collapse. So that's like their definite but very pessimistic vision. According to Peter Thiel, what we need is to go back to the future, go back to the place where there is optimistic but very definite moonshot kind of future. So. Okay, so with Peter Thiel, and with this kind of pandemic, so I think these kind of ideas of Peter Thiel's resonate now, and they will resonate. He's a contrarian, similar to Taleb, Nassim Taleb. So he's a contrarian for many years. He's been talking about the same thing, about the education system, about elite universities, how they function as some kind of nightclubs. With high entry and with limited capacity, artificially limited capacity, and he was contrarian for a long time, and he was proven right on many occasions. So Peter Thiel, okay, and Taleb and his optionality. So this is maybe where Taleb has kind of maybe in some way different view concerning optionality, like you should keep many options open by investing into many different projects, but investing in small sums. So if 90% of those projects fail, you are not devastated. Okay, so probably you can reconcile this particular difference, but what is important with Nassim Taleb is basically his ethics and his focus on preventing harm, and his focus on black swans. So black swan is a term for tail and or tail risks. So it's like for Pareto view of the world. So the Pareto world versus Gaussian world. So what we see now is like a tail event, so it's like a large, rare pandemic. We are suddenly thrown into chaos, and we need to rely on our heuristics, on our intuitions, on our immediate small networks of close friends, of high trust relationships. And here Taleb comes into play because he recently published a paper called Principia Politica, and the idea is that he proposes an alternative to Kantian universalism that our global order is built on. It's like the universal values of this and that, of everybody should be equal, which is right, it's true, but everybody should be treated as, let's say, as being the same, right? As like a kind of like the McDonaldization of the world. And he proposes quite an actionable alternative to it, which he calls fractal localism, where he proposes simple heuristics like a silver rule. So it's not like the golden rule, like treat others as you would like to be treated. But its silver rule is like don't treat others as you would not like to be, as you don't want to be treated, as you wouldn't like to be treated. So according to Taleb, this is a more robust rule. Why it's more robust? Because you don't know how the other people want to be treated, but if you it's like you via negativa, according to Taleb, means like you just avoid harm or you reduce some activity. So if you're sure that you don't like to be, I don't know, harassed, or you don't want to be shouted at, or you don't want to be this and that. I don't know. Just don't do it to onto others. So this is the silver rule. Then of course we could talk about some kind of something like a platinum rule, like treat others as they would like to be treated themselves, which might fit into this silver rule idea. But according to Taleb, basically, we. We live in a multiplicity of small subcultures and communities, and the governance doesn't scale well. So there is one thing to praise, let's say Singapore, Hong Kong, or to praise Rwanda, or I don't know, like to praise Dubai or some city-states. Or some small countries, relatively small countries like Denmark, right? I come from Slovakia. It's also a small country. Slovenia is like twice as small as us. So like small countries, and there is of course this idea that small samples, there is more variation in the small samples. It's a very simple idea, but even like big guys like Bill Gates burned $1 billion because of this mistake. They don't get the property well. That it means that many small countries probably would be worse off, and many small countries would be like excellent, because there is a smaller sample of people, and the variance could be large. So I don't know, probably Lesotho or some other countries might not fare as well, and then Rwanda might fare much better than the average because these small countries. But it's not true. Probably there is something like the smaller countries might be better on average, but the idea here, according to Taleb, is that governance or good governance doesn't scale well. This idea in this kind of like game B world that I follow, this kind of idea of like game A versus game B, like building some new kind of civilization bottom up from the sovereignty of individuals and from their local groups, teams of their Dunbar numbers. So this is kind of obvious that the transparency or good governance doesn't scale much better past Dunbar number, because then you can't easily check people, like how they are behaving. You can't check like who is being honest or something, because you don't have, let's say, so many opportunities to get to know people intimately and face to face, to engage into face to face interactions. So this idea is kind of simple, but then Taleb proposes a whole new kind of different types of heuristics, ideas, what to do and what not to do based on this his tiny book. For example, creating institutions that has which have a due date, or like a sunset clause, something like that. Various kind of ideas where it's kind of more robust, because you can have you can escape the monoculture of this universalism, this Kantian universalism. You can have various, let's say, suburbs, various city parts with various cultures coexisting together. And if you don't like one culture because, I don't know, it's too conservative of a neighborhood, then you can move into a more liberal neighborhood and party there, and I don't know, go to clubs. But if these guys, they want to keep their city part with I don't know, less music, less alcohol or something, and maybe they're a bit boring for you, so you can move somewhere else. These kind of ideas I recommend Principia Politica. Of course, now I don't have many concrete proposals from Taleb from that book. It doesn't come easily to my mind, but but it's quite novel and it's quite great. And the moment, of course, the most important Taleb's work is in the word anti-fragility. And so this is like the ethics of building not just robust but also resilient systems. Anti-fragility, it's also something that's was well explained by people I follow from this game B world, like Jordan Hall, where he distinguishes resilience from anti-fragility in a way that robustness is like holding your ground when you are attacked, when you are pushed, you are unmoved, so you are robust. Resilient would be like you fight back or something like that, and you do some counter action. But being anti-fragile would be something like inventing Thai boxing on the spot. So it's like so where the resilience it's more in the frame of energy consumption and some just raw energy. Anti-fragility is more in the information domain. Like you can actually repurpose some tools with new information, which is scalable, and then radically improve your performance thanks to some information, let's say some new psychotechnology, to use another language of John Vervaeke, or a stack of psychotechnologies to improve your performance, and then to be more anti-fragile, and then becoming it's like a positive feedback loop and various kind of feedback loops. Okay, so the ideas behind the Taleb's work are quite focused on anti-fragility, on ethics, on skin in the game, for example, he says that there is much more corruption in the or it seems that there is more corruption in the local level and the municipal level, and he says yes, exactly, this is the point, because the corruption there is more visible, so it's more apparent, and then you can deal with it because it's more visible on the local level, and that's like the whole point. So the corruption in the municipal level is more visible, but in the federal level or something, it's like more sophisticated, because it's like there is a lot of rent seeking, a lot of delayed actions. For example, you can complexify some laws, like make them too complex, so to understand, and this creates lots of niches for rent seekers, let's say for some consultants, this and that, or you can approve some, medicines, you can do this and that, and you can delay the negative, positive, but let's say negative effects for future generations, or into 5 years, into 10 years. So you can do more harm globally if you are to level up. And so this means there should be more precautions, or doing rather less than more, and the higher up you go in these kind of hierarchies. So basically, very interesting idea. What Taleb says is that you could be a libertarian in the federal level. You could be a Republican in the state level. You could be a Democrat in the county level. You could be socialist in the city level, and you can be even a communist in your local community or in the family level. Okay, so it's like the idea of scale is central for Taleb. So the governance doesn't scale well. The good governance doesn't scale well. That's one idea. And then the scale as a central point, and also the scale and the rate of change. So it's like there is no if you say that you are conservative or you're liberal, it's like what is the context of that saying, like in what context, and what is the rate of change we are talking about, because everybody is maybe conservative or liberal depending on the context and on the rate of change. Maybe somebody, like the rate of change, there might be too fast rate of change for almost everyone, so almost everyone will be conservative in the context of this information or this rate of change. Like if we are, I don't know, some things might be too fast for anyone. Like if you propose some changes that are really too steep, everybody, or probably almost everybody, will be conservative. So this is like the idea: the conservative, liberal, or progressive conservative. It's like relative to what context and relative to what rate of change. This is all, again, bringing complexity maybe into this discussion. And then the idea that scale matters a lot, so you can be libertarian in the federal level, you can be communist, almost communist in the family and small community levels. So again, this doesn't scale well, but it's governance doesn't scale well, but also ideologies don't scale well. Okay, so you can be really liberal on the federal level and communist on the family and very local level, so neighborhood level. Okay, you can share. Yeah, you don't need to behave like a libertarian in your own family or your neighborhood or between your very close friends. It would be kind of silly, right? Okay, so and then now I'm bringing, like, maybe connecting these two authors in and thinkers, Peter Thiel and his getting back to the future idea, the future that is positive and that is definite future. So like having new moonshots, but it would be something like Earth shots, like focusing on Mother Earth or planet Earth or whatever, for maybe connecting space industry with circular economy, so having better satellites, better monitoring of Earth, and then having circular economy, like new materials, radically shortened supply chains, much less complex. So this is what we need. And Taleb, we need ethics, new ethics, and we need new focus on scale and new focus on rate of change. So this is important, and this is like the complexity kind of perspective on that. So, but then getting back to my article, so okay, getting back to future, that's like Peter Thiel. Getting back to history, it's like Nassim Taleb, and history here, or the old wisdom, would be the wisdom focused on tail risks, on on via negativa, on focusing on like reduction or reducing your exposures, on some old grandma wisdom. So this is like getting back to history, and it's also going back to the Straussian moment, to Leo Strauss, and to another friend, Alexandre Kojève, that's the French guy who was behind the EU project as well, and he was like a Hegelian philosopher, and he said that history stops, or history ends, when people no longer ask big questions. And so I think that these pandemics of COVID-19 brought us again to a period of time where loads of people are asking loads of important and difficult questions. So okay, the end of history is when, according to Kojève, when people stop asking difficult questions. Now we entered again into the history because loads of people are asking loads of difficult questions. So then in my article I kind of went on to connect these two thinkers, because I think they're important. We need to give them some loads of credit, because they've been talking about these issues for a long time. Okay, so Taleb was here before effective altruism. Taleb was here before Game B, and his ways of behavior, and also maybe some of Thiel's ideas might not be, I don't know, politically correct, or that amazing. Like you don't need to buy the whole package of course. You don't need to buy the whole portfolio. You can just cherry pick various ideas that you like. But I think it's important to connect these two thinkers into our time, but then fast forward and maybe connect them to other subcultures. So another subculture is Game B, which comes from Santa Fe Institute and people, not really from the Santa Fe Institute, but from people who are connected with the Santa Fe Institute somehow. And so for this kind of culture, or from this culture of cross-sectorial collaboration between scientists, various scientists, artists and scientists, between people from various domains, and focusing on embodied experience. Okay, so complexity, and it's different. So the complex domain is different from complicated domain, and we have thinkers like Jim Rudd, Jordan Hall, Taleb as well, focused on complexity. And we have also thinkers, and here is like Nora Bateson, Bonitaro, Tom Chi, maybe even Dave Snowden again, maybe here in this place. They focus more on embodied kind of sense of complexity. So it's like reading books about biking. We can read like tens of books about biking. You will not know how to ride a bike. Yeah, so you need to start riding a bike to know how to like this. So this is what Tom Chi says. So Tom Chi, okay, Tom Chi and his rapid prototyping, Bonitaro and his her techniques about like collective action and collective trust building, and Nora Bateson, she has these like warm data labs as a kind of new technique that I would like to explore. Dave Snowden and his Canavan framework. Is distinguishing various complex, complicated, chaotic, and obvious domain, and then obvious, complicated, complex, chaotic, and then domain of disorder. So so this is kind of a framework, but Dave Snowden also is doing some. He has this. SenseMaker software for weak signal detection, and also for some kind of new theory of change, like that is focused on more stories like these and less stories like that. So here in our very complex and chaotic situation of COVID-19, for example, you can track various micro-narratives of people, and they can reflect and see like what they are having. They are having the lack of some materials, personal protective equipment, or they are having lack of food or lack of movement or this and that, and they're reporting on it, you say. And then this theory of change in this complex domain would not be focused on some specific goal, like we need, I don't know, everybody to own I don't know, this type of machine or this and that, or to become this type of person or what. No, but you focus on some kind of clusters of micro narratives, and you try to bring people from one, let's say, bad place to a less bad place to a bit better place, and somehow just monitoring those narratives and shifting them a little bit, somehow to see like what we could do as a theory of change to increase the number of these slightly more positive micro narratives as adjacent possible. Okay, so but then, for example, Jordan Hall recently he talked about that now is the time to fix our own pipes. What he means is that we lived in a world where it's like a Game of Thrones analogy of we lived in this King's Landing for a long time, and now we kind of appear to be in this Winterfell. So politics, or I don't know, identity politics, petty etiquette, petty focus on etiquette, some kind of political correctness, this and that. It seems to be out, and we are now focusing on ground reality, meaning like if your pipe is broken, you have like 4 types of responses that you can do. Like you can either fix your own pipe, or you can hire a plumber to fix your pipe, and when the plumber, or you can call your landlord to call a plumber to fix your pipe. And in this third level of like Baudrillard simulacra, now it's where the politics enter. Now you have to play some kind of narrative game with the landlord to explain like why your problem with the pipe is the priority for the house, because the house might have loads of problems, loads of issues. And the landlord might actually have many houses to take care of, and why your problem has the priority. And so this is also the place with the identity. This is the place where the politics starts, where the identity politics starts. Well, like this is our issue as our community has this kind of problem. We need to solve this and that. Okay, and then. Yeah, you can even go higher, and you can have just like pure simulation of ideas, like maybe what I'm doing now. But anyway, no, it's just like pure kind of lobbying, advocacy, and playing with concepts, and just living in this kind of like wonky area of totally disembodied, universalistic ideas, big ideas, and discussions about totally abstracted concepts. And getting back to ground reality would mean fixing your own pipes. Okay, so like maybe not focusing on like 100%, like you need to go on 100% off grid, you need to do this and that, but just increasing a little bit the percentage of what you can do alone. So mixing the game A, or the centralized hierarchy kind of world, with the bits and pieces of the new world of the decentralized network-based collective intelligence, this and that, but mixing it with like a little bit of off-grid energy, a little bit of vertical farming, a little bit of permaculture, this and that. It doesn't mean that you need to maybe switch 100% to everything, because it would be really difficult, but to be humble about it, and to kind of, let's say, have a small progress, like you want to get better every week, like 10% better, or every month, 10% better, or something like that. Imagine every week 10% better, you would get really, really, really better really fast. So these are like the idea of like fixing your own pipes. And then I continued in the article with a kind of closing chapter that was a bit difficult for me, meaning like I was probably a bit tired, or this is a bit too much for me to process and to put into words, but the idea was like in the original article by Peter Thiel, that was in the Talebian Moment, there was a small subtitle called "The City and the Man," the City and Man, and I created a new, my last not chapter, but my last subtitle was like "The City and Woman," and again was play on words, but I wanted to express an important idea there, which is that again, getting back to scale, to Jeffrey West's work on scaling. So the biological systems, they scale sublinearly, which means that if you have an elephant or a big tree or something like that, he consumes or it consumes less water per, I don't know, per cubic centimeter, or compared to the volume. Then if you have a small plant or small animal, so there is like these kind of rates of change, like the metabolic rates and the surface to volume ratios, so it's like the small animals, everything is faster for them, they're small but then they die, they have shorter lifespan. The big animals, they're a bit longer, everything is a bit slower for them, they're more fragile, as Taleb would say. But then, okay, so these biological systems, they scale sublinearly. So this is also what Tomchi says, he says that the problem is not overpopulation, because the mass of ants and what they consume, and the ants, what they consume is even more than people, what the people consume. With ants, they provide pure environmental services, not pure, but meaning like on balance, they are like positive sum. So the more ants there are, the better the nature. The better the nature has it. So they can really support these environmental services because they give more, they regenerate, they give more than they take. Okay, so the humans, on the other hand, they consume more than they provide the nature to, so it's kind of unsustainable and more fragile. And then we have more and more people, let's say, the population doubled over a couple of decades. The problem is that, overpopulation is a problem, but the problem is much more deeper, because if, let's say, there is a half, again, there is some big pandemic, some catastrophe, and we have again, like, I don't know, half the population, the global population we have now, then we would be only, let's say, 30 or 40 years back into the past. So we would still get the same problem in one generation, let's say, and it wouldn't be the same problem because we have different exponential technology, which brings more existential risks than before. So it wouldn't be even the same. Probably it would get better in many areas and worse in many areas. But then the key idea that I wanted to present in the last section is that we are different than the cities. So the cities are different than the living organisms. So because the cities, when the cities scale, when the city scales, when the cities scale, when they grow, the bigger and bigger cities, the more and more people live there, the higher and higher crime rate, or the more crime and the more pollution per capita. So it's like the opposite. So it's not sublinear scaling, but it's supralinear scaling, which is quite interesting, and I think this is like the core problem. Something like our needs are different from our desires. So I feel that this is the key issue. And why is that? Again, I brought into the picture again René Girard. I brought there Alexander Bard as a Swedish philosopher that I consider to be something like Zizek 2.0. I brought some other thinkers, and I tried to kind of play with this idea that what is it? What is that we are liking? Why we are desiring so many things? Is it like because we try to like mimic our neighbors? Is it keeping up with the Joneses? Does it has something to do keeping up with our class, with our community, keeping up, like finding the right mating partner, or compensating for some lack of love in our childhood? I don't know, but this is like the very deep problem. And then I brought three different utopias of Alexander Bard. One is ecotopia, another one is cosmopolis, another one is like syntheos or something like that. And I discussed like three different verbs that can help us to get there, like exaptation instead of adaptation, imploitation instead of exploitation, and then something like prosuming instead of consuming. So I came up with another word called like syngesting, so it's like digesting and synthesizing. So like digesting some pain and then synthesizing it into something beautiful. So and this is like the area where I got lost, of course, because this is like very deep. Yeah, and probably, and I left it open-ended, like probably that we have this like as humans, and we probably will be never perfect, never enough, and maybe this is the point, like we should stop trying to be perfect. We should focus on wholeness, focus on health, focus on vitality, focus on not perfection, but on continuation of becoming ever better, like like as a calculus idea, like ever better, ever like more and more whole, but not focus too much on perfection, because that's elusive. That's like another generation will be better. This is also the idea of Alexander Bard, like okay, we emulate or we imitate saints. So some priests, let's say, they imitate saints, we imitate priests, or then adults imitate priests, and then children, they imitate adults. So it's like this is like the idea of like having more and more of these like positive kind of not celebrities, but having some kind of like role models and imitating them, and then creating together some kind of digital human computer hybrid network of collective sense making, and like something that can unite us, help us to build these cosmopolises, or like these places where we can live in peace with different subcultures, and also creating this ecotopia, something like focusing on technology to solve our problems. So not just like focusing on political correctness or some kind of moralizing, but focusing on hard tech, space industry, circular economy. And the central idea where I would like to conclude now is that these pandemics and these brought us a new paradigm. Instead of efficiency, we got into the paradigm of health. So what is health in the context of economy? What is health in the context of family? What is health in the context of biology? As Nora Bateson says, like seeing trans-contextually through different contexts and seeing health. And I played with the idea that there is like something like vitality, like anti-fragility, vitality, and there is something like well-being or robustness, and this is like present in the relationships, in the network. The network is robust, and then so the well-being arises from the network as emergent property of our interactions, of our relationships. And then the third aspect is wholeness, and this is like the third person view, like the wholeness. So it's like I played with the idea of health and like the vitality, well-being and wholeness as like three aspects, three different views on health and of health. So so this is maybe what I would like to focus, and I would like to conclude with the quote that I made up, and it's like if we don't have a clear future, we are fragile, and when we are fragile, we don't have a clear future. So it's like we need to escape this vicious circle of indefinite optimistic or pessimistic future, of like just riding some waves as they come, and we need to focus on something proactive and building hundreds of companies in this game B space, companies that would not make addictive products, but they would help us to reach our potential, reach our sovereignty, become more robust, become more anti-fragile, become more healthy. So we need to grab this opportunity and use it for something better. And Peter Thiel, his ideas have their day now, especially on education, probably. So we are getting back to the future. At the same time, we are also getting back to the history and the Talebian wisdom, as Jim Roth says. Wisdom is something like understanding tail risk and understanding like having this precautionary principle. So combining Taleb and Thiel. And so this is my kind of very painful way of describing things, because I'm not so eloquent as I would like to be. But this is maybe my kind of explanation of this article that I called the Talebian and Thielian Moment, and some basic ideas behind it. So, and it's also like my kind of attempt at the one small little project, maybe a separate publication on Medium, maybe a podcast that I call Between Ideas and Subcultures. So thank you for listening and watching and reading, and I hope maybe you liked one idea, and maybe you can actually correct me where I made some mistakes, and maybe if you have some other ideas how we could reframe this problem of cities versus biological organizations, or desires versus needs, or exploitation, or just like simple ideas, or the idea with the health, vitality, well-being, and wholeness. Maybe I got it wrong, or just like I tried to build on these ideas from Taleb and Thiel and mix in some game B ideas, and probably I got many things wrong. So, but if you liked at least one thing, and you endured through this noise, and you found at least some little signal into what I'm saying, I'm totally grateful, and I'm really happy that you that I could actually maybe brought some inspiration to you. And I promise I will get better with my eloquency and with my style of speaking. I will try to speed it up and make it like to the point, and to bring more signal and to less noise. But I hope you stay safe, and I wish you all the best. Thank you for listening. Take care.